Captain Hayes stood alone in the observation dome of Nexus Prime and watched the stars. Around him, the largest space station in the known galaxy pulsed with the noise of 1,000 alien species. Different sounds filled the corridors. Different smells floated through the air systems. Different colors of skin and different body shapes moved past each other without care or attention. He was the only human in the viewing chamber, and that was exactly how he liked it. 30 years of military service had taught to read situations. He looked for patterns that others missed. He noticed what people did not say, not just what they said out loud. And right now, something very wrong was moving beneath the surface of the Galactic Council. He could feel it the way an animal feels a storm coming before the sky changes color. The Galactic Council had accepted humanity into their ranks 5 years ago. The official story was one of welcome and cooperation. In truth, humanity had fought hard to earn even the smallest seat at their table. Earth and the human colonies had been watched carefully, tested repeatedly, and finally allowed to join only because the humans proved they could not be ignored anymore. Turned away from the stars, he needed to find Sarah. Sarah was humanity's diplomatic representative to the Council. She was brilliant with words and languages. She could speak 16 different alien dialects and could read the body language of species that had no bodies at all. More importantly, she did not trust easily, and that made her valuable. He found her in the diplomatic quarter, moving through a crowded information center filled with data screens and communication terminals. She wore the formal gray suit that identified her as Earth's official voice to the galaxy. Her dark eyes scanned documents as she walked, which meant she was already worried about something. Sarah saw and nodded toward a private meeting room. They moved together without speaking, aware that walls had ears in a place like this. Once the door closed and confirmed the privacy lock was active, Sarah spoke first. "They are hiding something in the treaty language," she said flatly. "I found it buried in subsection 7, paragraph 12. They want us to surrender our biological research, everything we have learned about adapting human genetics to different planets, everything we know about increasing human and resistance to radiation." Felt the cold touch of confirmation. His suspicions had been correct. "What are they offering in return?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would be worthless. "Outdated weapons designs, technology they stopped using 100 years ago, farming equipment that does not work efficiently in low-gravity environments, and a reduction in our council fees by 2%. It is not a trade. It is theft dressed in formal language." Sarah handed a tablet with the treaty text displayed. He read through it carefully, his jaw tightening as he absorbed the details. They had designed this trap perfectly. The hidden clauses buried deep in the document, the public presentation that made it sound fair, the trap that would leave humanity weaker while making the stronger. "How long until the vote?" asked. 48 hours. The Council will call it a historic moment of unity. They will say humanity is finally contributing to the greater good, and then they will take everything that makes us valuable. Walked to the window of the small meeting room. Outside, the galaxy spread beneath them in all its terrible beauty. Nexus Prime orbited a neutral planet called Meridian, positioned exactly at the center of the mapped galaxy. This was supposed to be the heart of civilization and order. Instead, it was the center of a web of lies and political games. "They think we are weak," said quietly. "They think because we came late to space travel, because our world was harsh and forced us to develop slowly, that we do not have the ability to understand their games. They see humans and think they see children playing with adult tools." "What do we do?" Sarah asked. Turned to look at her directly. In her eyes, he saw the same thing he felt. Not anger, not even fear, it was clarity. The clarity that came when you finally understood the situation completely. "We do not fight them here," he said. "We do not argue in the council chambers. We do not plead or negotiate or show them that we are offended. Instead, we show them that they never understood what humanity actually is." "That sounds like a plan to start a war." "No," replied. "A war would be loud and violent. What we are going to do will be far more destructive, and they will not understand it until it is too late to stop us." He sat down across from Sarah and began to speak in low, even tones. He told her about contingency plans that had been drawn up 3 years ago. Plans that had been created when the leadership of the human colonies first realized that the Galactic Council did not want partners. They wanted subjects who could be controlled and exploited. These plans had never been activated. They had been stored in secure locations, waiting for the moment when the Council finally revealed its true intentions. That moment had arrived. "I need you to keep negotiating," told her. "Make them believe we are considering their offer, ask for clarification, request extensions, buy us time but not too much time. 48 hours is not enough for what we need to do. We need 72 hours. Sarah understood immediately. "You are going to activate the plans." "Yes, codename Silent Exodus. Every human asset in this galaxy will move simultaneously. Ships, research stations, cultural archives, genetic databases, industrial facilities. Everything we have built, everything we are, we take it all and we leave." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. The weight of what he was proposing settled on her shoulders. Humanity would lose its position in the Galactic Council. It would lose trade agreements that fed billions of people. It would lose access to resources that the colonies depended on. It would be cutting itself off from the largest civilization in the known galaxy. But it would also be free. When, Sarah asked finally, "Tonight, I am sending the activation message through encrypted channels within the hour. Tell me you are ready." Sarah nodded slowly. "I am ready." Reached across and took her hand. "What comes next will be harder than anything humanity has ever faced, but we will face it on our own terms. We will not be slaves who happen to wear the title of council members." He stood and moved toward the door. At the threshold, he looked back at her. "The next time we see each other, everything will be different," he said. Then he was gone, and Sarah was alone with the weight of what was about to happen. Outside in the corridors of Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council continued its business, unaware that the stage was being set for an exit that would shake the foundations of their power. The encrypted message that Captain Hayes sent out carried only 4 words. "Silent Exodus activated, begin." To any alien intelligence that might intercept it, the message would mean nothing. But to every human in the galaxy, it meant everything. Admiral Victoria received the message on the lunar station orbiting the human colony world of New Earth. She read it once, then destroyed the data file. No communication from her, no acknowledgement, just action. She had been waiting 3 years for this message, and every hour of those 3 years had been spent preparing her fleet. The order went out quietly to 17 warships, 42 transport vessels, and 6 mobile research stations. Begin evacuation protocol Alpha. Within 6 hours, every ship had broken orbit and jumped into hyperspace. They did not travel toward Nexus Prime or toward other Galactic Council space. They traveled outward, toward the unmapped regions of space where only human scouts had ventured. The human trade delegation vanished overnight. The embassy buildings went silent. Trading posts were locked down. 3 weeks of scheduled negotiations simply ended with no explanation except a message stating that human representatives would not be available for the foreseeable future. Dr. Aaron Lewis sat in the human research facility buried deep in a neutral zone. Around him, thousands of data servers contained the complete record of human biological and technological knowledge. Centuries of discovery, generations of human advancement. It was stored here in encrypted form, waiting for this moment. He authorized the full data transfer to mobile servers. The transfer took 12 hours and moved gigabytes of information at speeds that pushed the network systems to their limits. When it was complete, he personally destroyed the main servers. The data was gone from this place. Every last bit of human research had been removed from the reach of the Galactic Council. James Cooper, head of Human Intelligence Operations, sent messages to 73 sleeper agents positioned throughout alien governments and corporate structures. The messages were simple: begin information campaign. The sleeper agents understood their instructions from training. Spread false reports about human ship movements. Suggest that the human evacuation was happening in one direction when it was actually happening in 5 different directions. Create confusion. Create noise. Give the humans time. Back on Nexus Prime, Captain Hayes continued his normal routine as if nothing was happening. He attended diplomatic functions. He ate meals in the council cafeteria. He reviewed reports about human trade agreements. He gave no sign that his entire species was in motion behind the scenes. Sarah sat in the diplomatic negotiations chamber and discussed the terms of the treaty with. The representative was fat and satisfied. He had the look of someone who had already won. "Humanity needs more time to consider such an important agreement," Sarah said in perfect diplomatic language. My people want to ensure we understand all the implications of such a generous offer. Sfour eyes narrowed. How much time? 72 hours. We have made our decision to leave the council chambers and consult with Earth directly. This is a matter too serious for a single representative to decide alone. Considered this. 72 hours, but this is the final extension. After that, the treaty will be voted on whether humanity responds or not. Sarah nodded with perfect respect. That is more than fair. Behind closed doors, she reported to that they had the time they needed. The second phase of silent exodus began. Across human space, massive generation ships started loading populations. Not armies, not warriors, families, scientists, artists, children. The complete genetic and cultural diversity of humanity compressed into vessels designed to survive the jump into deep space. Supply ships detached from bases. Industrial equipment was packed and secured. Medical facilities were disassembled. Every piece of human infrastructure that could be moved was marked for evacuation. The human of Earth itself received special attention. Detailed scans were made of ancient human sites. Cultural records and genetic samples from every human ethnic group were collected and stored. Libraries filled with human literature and history were digitized, and this was not just about moving people. This was about preserving everything that made humanity unique. On day 2 of the evacuation, a junior intelligence analyst noticed something unusual. Human shipping patterns had changed dramatically. Vessels that normally carried trade goods were now moving construction materials and fuel. Passenger ships that had never left human space were suddenly being for long-range travel. He submitted a report to his superior. His superior read it and sent a message to, "There appears to be increased activity in human shipping. Nothing that violates any treaties, but it is unusual." Was not concerned. Humans are always moving things around. They are primitive and inefficient. Pay it no attention. The intelligence analyst's report was filed and forgotten. By the third day, humanity had evacuated 70% of its population from council space. The numbers were staggering, billions of people, but they left carefully, without panic, without violence, just orderly movement toward deep space. Stood alone in his quarters on Nexus Prime. Around him, the station continued its normal routines. No one suspected anything. No one understood that they were watching the largest migration in galactic history and could not see it. He sent one message too. The human delegation requests a final meeting before the vote. We have made our decision about the treaty. Agreed immediately. He wanted to see the moment of human surrender. He wanted to observe the moment when humanity accepted its inferior position in the galactic order. Entered the chamber knowing this would be the last time he ever set foot in a place like this. The realization was strangely peaceful. Humanity has decided to withdraw from the Galactic Council, he said calmly too. We are invoking the dissolution clause that exists in all human agreements. This requires 72 hours notice, which we are providing exactly on schedule. Stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. This is impossible. Humans cannot leave. You exist because the Council permits you to exist. That is where we disagree, said. We exist because we are human, and we have decided that our future is better built outside of your council. He turned and walked out without waiting for a response. As he left Nexus Prime that night, the first human ships were already jumping to hyperspace in an area of space that no other species had ever properly mapped. Ships carrying millions of people. Ships carrying the future of humanity. Behind him, stood in his chamber and realized that the human had somehow played him. But he did not yet understand how completely. The Galactic Council chamber was designed to impress. Its ceiling stretched higher than any human building. The walls were made of materials that caught light in ways that created constant visual movement. The floor was polished to reflect the faces of those who stood on it. Every detail was meant to show the power and permanence of the council. Sarah stood in that chamber and looked directly at the gathered. More than 200 alien representatives sat in their designated seats, waiting to hear humanity's response to the treaty. We thank the Galactic Council for the opportunity to participate in this discussion, she began, her voice steady and clear. But humanity must formally announce its withdrawal from the Council effective immediately. The chamber erupted in noise. Shouts from a dozen different species overlapped each other. Some stood up from their seats. Some pounded their desks in anger. four eyes bulged as his skin color changed to deep red, a sign of extreme rage among the. Sarah continued speaking, raising her voice to be heard over the chaos. This withdrawal is not a negotiating tactic. It is not temporary. Humanity is invoking the dissolution clause that appears in all of our agreements with the Council. That clause requires 72 hours of formal notice. We are providing that notice now. Stood up, his species was ancient and wise, or so they claimed. Humans cannot simply leave the Council. There are obligations, there are treaties, you are bound by law. With respect, those laws were created by the Council for the Council, Sarah replied. Humanity agreed to them because we hoped for genuine partnership. The discovery of hidden clauses in the treaty that would require us to surrender our research while receiving worthless technology in return shows that genuine partnership was never the intent. She placed a data chip on the central table. This contains the full analysis of the treaty language, the deliberate deception, the systematic attempt to weaken humanity while strengthening select council members. Every word of our analysis can be independently. Another shouted, "This is betrayal. Humanity owes the Council everything. Without our permission, your kind would still be crawling on you." That is exactly the problem, Sarah said. Humans do not owe the Council gratitude for what we built ourselves. We do not owe anyone dominance over our future, and we will not accept a position where we are treated as children or subjects rather than equals. She walked toward the chamber exit. Humanity leaves as equals or we do not stay, she said over her shoulder. 72 hours from this moment, every human asset in Galactic Council space will be withdrawn. Every ship, every station, every person. We are taking our knowledge, our technology, and our future. What you choose to do after that is your concern, not ours. The guards at the door did not try to stop her. They had no orders to do so. She walked out into the hallways of Nexus Prime, and behind her the council chamber descended into complete chaos. Leaned forward on his desk, his voice shaking with rage. Send military vessels, intercept the human ships, this will not stand. But even as he gave the order, the first confirmed reports began arriving from military commanders. Human vessels were jumping to hyperspace in coordinated patterns across multiple regions of space. More ships than any military authority had known humans possessed. More ships than had been reported to the Council in 5 years of official records. "How is this possible?" demanded a general. "We have monitoring stations throughout human space. We would have seen this activity." "We saw it," a voice came from the back of the chamber. The junior intelligence analyst who had submitted his report 2 days ago now stood with anger in his voice. "I reported it to personally. He dismissed it as normal human inefficiency." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Everyone understood what had happened. They had been outplayed, completely, thoroughly, definitively. The human had hidden the evacuation in plain sight. They had made it look like ordinary trading patterns and routine maintenance operations. The military authorities had been looking for something dramatic and obvious. They had never considered that humans could conduct a civilization-scale evacuation without drawing attention. On the military front, commanders launched pursuit vessels, fast ships designed for combat and interception. They followed the jump signatures that human ships had left behind. But humans had anticipated this. Every jump signature led into vast clouds of spatial interference that scrambled tracking equipment. By the time ships emerged from those clouds, the human vessels had already made secondary jumps, then tertiary jumps. The pursuit ships found only empty space. Within 18 hours, 0 human vessels remained in Galactic Council space. Not a single ship, not a single station broadcasting human identification codes. The Council had lost contact with every human installation across their territory. The Galactic Council emergency sessions lasted for days, argued about what had happened and what it meant. Some wanted military action. Others wanted economic sanctions. A few argued that attempting to pursue humans was exactly what humans wanted, to waste Council resources on a hopeless chase. In the government, meetings grew heated. Their technological advantage had been built on ideas stolen from human biological research. Now that research was gone. Whatever humans had learned about genetic adaptation, about radiation resistance, about extending human in harsh environments, all of it had been removed from reach. A message arrived on Council channels. It was from Captain Hayes. The message stated simply, "Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for confirming our need for independence. We will not return. We offer diplomatic relations as equals only. Any attempt to follow us into deep space will be met with defensive measures." That was all. No apologies, no pleading, no hope of negotiation from a position of weakness, just a statement of fact from a species that had made its choice and was moving forward. In the following days and weeks, the true scale of what humans had accomplished became clear. They had taken everything with them, not in a hasty evacuation, but in a methodical removal of every human asset that could be moved. Cultural archives, genetic databases, manufacturing facilities, trade records, everything that could make humanity self-sufficient had been extracted from Council space. The economic impact on the Galactic Council was immediate and severe. Trade routes that depended on human logistics collapsed. Species that had become comfortable purchasing human biological products now faced shortages. Military alliances that included human support suddenly lacked those resources. But the most important impact was psychological. A species that the Council had treated as inferior had played them completely. And they had done it without violence, without aggression, without breaking any laws. They had simply decided to leave, and they had done it so effectively that the largest civilization in the galaxy could not stop them or even slow them down. Sarah stood in the human diplomatic vessel as it made its final jump out of mapped space. She looked at the stars behind them one last time and then turned away. Humanity was no longer children in a galactic order. They had become something else entirely, something that could not be controlled or manipulated. Something the Galactic Council would have to learn to fear. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in a star system that no Galactic Council chart contained. The system had 3 habitable worlds and rich asteroid fields filled with minerals and metals. It was hidden in a fold of space where stellar radiation created massive interference patterns. Weapons systems could not target through the interference. Tracking signals could not penetrate it. To the outside galaxy, this place did not officially exist. Captain Hayes stood in the command center of the flagship and watched as humanity's convoy took up positions around the primary habitable moon. Ships began establishing orbital stations. Transport vessels opened their cargo bays and started unloading construction materials. The process had been planned for years. Now it became reality. Estimate 52% of our population has arrived safely, reported Lieutenant Emma Rogers from her station. Another 30% will arrive within the next week as the secondary convoys complete their jumps. Casualties asked. 3 ships lost in transit, 2,314 people. Equipment losses are contained to acceptable levels. We have confirmed arrival of all primary research archives. The genetic databases are intact. Agricultural seeds have arrived undamaged. Nodded, 3,000 people was a terrible cost, but it was a cost that had been planned for. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for years, and part of that preparation had been accepting that not everyone could be saved. Those 3,000 people had given their lives so billions could escape. Below them, the moon's surface was already being transformed. Automated construction equipment was building permanent structures. Habitation modules were being assembled. Water processing plants were being established. What had been a barren moon was becoming humanity's new home. Admiral Victoria arrived at the flagship in a small shuttle. She was a tall woman with gray in her hair and the bearing of someone who had spent her entire life in military service. She walked directly to position. "All evacuation operations have been completed successfully," she reported. "Every human asset has been extracted from Council space. The Council is currently pursuing false trails in 7 different directions. None of them will lead anywhere. Their ships are burning fuel chasing ghosts." Felt something inside him that might have been satisfaction. Civilian population status. Integrated into the settlements. Some people are struggling with the reality of their situation. We left behind homes, careers, relationships. Some are grieving, others are angry. But every person knows why we did this, and they understand it was necessary. Sarah entered the command center, looking tired but determined. She had been coordinating with refugee processing centers, helping people understand their new circumstances and organize the settlement efforts. It was exhausting work. "The old Earth seeds have been taken to the agricultural sector," she reported. "Dr. Lewis is already growing test crops in the growth chambers. He estimates we can have functional farms producing human food within 3 months. Most of our people will not have to eat nutrient paste within 6 months. That will help with morale significantly. Looked at his 3 most trusted officers. The hardest part of this is not behind us. It is ahead of us. We have extracted ourselves from the Galactic Council, but we have also cut ourselves off from trade networks that keep billions of people alive. We have separated ourselves from resources that most human colonies have depended on for years. How long can we survive independently? Victoria asked. According to Dr. Lewis, indefinitely. We have the genetic knowledge to terraform these worlds. We have the manufacturing capacity to build everything we need. We have the scientific knowledge accumulated over centuries of human advancement. We do not need the Council's charity, but it will be hard. It will take time, and some of our people may not make it. Sarah spoke quietly. Was there any other choice? If we had stayed, they would have slowly drained us of everything that makes us valuable. In 50 years, humans would be entirely dependent on the Council. In 100 years, the Council would own humanity completely. I know, I know exactly why we did this, and I would do it again, but that does not make it easier. That night stood alone in the observation chamber of the flagship and looked down at the moon below. Lights were being strung up across the human settlements. Structures were taking shape. The beginning of a civilization that existed for itself alone, not for the benefit of other species. His communicator chirped. A message from the Galactic Council had arrived. It was an ultimatum. The Council demanded that humanity return to Council space immediately. They offered to restore all treaties and agreements if humans would come back and submit to a trade ban for 5 years as punishment for their betrayal. The message was signed by personally. Deleted the message without responding. In the following weeks, more messages arrived. Some were threats. Some were attempts at negotiation. One message came from a faction of Younger offering improved terms if humans would reconsider their position. Responded to that one with a single sentence. Humanity will engage in trade and diplomacy with the Council as equals only. We are no longer available as subjects. Then he shut down the communications channel. The human settlements grew rapidly. Dr. Aaron Lewis led scientific teams in analyzing the local flora and fauna. Some of it was useful. Some of it was dangerous. Humans began learning how to survive on these new worlds not as visitors, but as inhabitants. Children were born in human space for the first time in years. These children would never see the Galactic Council. They would never hear a voice or experience the suffocating politics of the council chambers. They would grow up in a civilization that belonged entirely to humanity. But there were also losses. 17 humans died in an accident while establishing a mining facility in the asteroid fields. A disease outbreak in the settlement area killed 43 people before Dr. Lewis could develop a treatment. Ships malfunctioned. Equipment broke down. People struggled with the psychological weight of knowing they could never go home. Sarah helped establish a memorial garden. In it, they planted trees grown from seeds brought from Earth. The trees would live for centuries. In some ways, they would outlive every human who had made the journey. But in other ways, they represented hope. They represented the future. They represented humanity's commitment to being more than survivors. They represented humanity's commitment to creating something beautiful in this new place. Walked through the memorial garden one evening and found Sarah among the young trees. She was sitting on a bench, watching the sunset. The sky was red and gold and purple. The sun that created this sunset was a star that had no name in any human record. "Do you regret it?" asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Every day I regret leaving people behind. Every day I regret the 3,000 we lost in transit. Every day I regret the future that some humans will never have. But no, I do not regret the decision itself." "That is honest at least," said. "The Council is still trying to find us," Sarah continued. "I have received reports through our intelligence contacts. They have launched 10 different search expeditions. None of them have found anything. But eventually, someone will learn where we are. Eventually, someone will try to attack. Eventually, the galaxy will force us to decide if we are willing to fight to protect our independence." "And are we?" asked. Sarah looked at him directly. "That depends on whether the humans we are building this civilization for understand that freedom requires defense. It requires willingness to fight, not for conquest, not for expansion, but for survival as a free people." Understood what she was saying. This was not the end of their struggle. This was only the beginning. They had escaped the Council's control, but they had not escaped the galaxy. Somewhere out there in the mapped regions of space, the Galactic Council was still power, still strong, still waiting for humanity to make a mistake. And humanity would have to be ready when that moment came. 20 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The human settlements had grown from a fragile group of communities struggling to survive into thriving civilizations that spanned multiple star systems. New settlements had been established. New technologies had been developed. The population had doubled as children born in human space grew to adulthood knowing nothing of the Council's dominion. Captain Hayes was old now. His hair was completely white. His movements were slower. But his mind remained sharp, and his authority within the human government remained absolute. He sat in the main council chamber of humanity's primary settlement, listening to debates about trade policy with the outer settlements. The younger generation did not remember life under the Galactic Council. They had never experienced the humiliation of being treated as inferior. They had never sat in chambers where their voices were ignored. To them, independence was simply the normal state of existence. This troubled sometimes. A people that forgot what it had cost to achieve freedom might not fight to preserve it. The debate about trade policy ended with a consensus, and people began leaving the chamber. Admiral Victoria approached as the room emptied. She was also old now, her military bearing softened by age but not diminished. She carried a data tablet. "We have intercepted a message from the Galactic Council," she said quietly. "They have finally located our position." Took the tablet and read the message. The Council was sending a delegation, not a military force, a diplomatic expedition. The message stated that the Council wished to discuss terms for humanity's return and reintegration into galactic affairs. "How long until they arrive?" asked. 3 months. The journey through deep space will take that long even for their fastest ships. Handed the tablet back to her. "Send a message. Humanity will receive a delegation, but they will receive it on our terms in our territory with our rules of engagement." He stood slowly and walked to the chamber's window. Outside, the settlement stretched across the landscape, buildings that humans had constructed from human designs, gardens filled with plants grown from Earth seeds. The sky was alien, but it had become home. Dr. Aaron Lewis arrived at the settlement that afternoon. He was still working on the genetic research that had caused all of this to begin. He had made remarkable progress. Humanity could now breed crops that survived in the harsh soils of their new worlds. Humans could adapt genetically to survive radiation levels that would kill any council species. The research that they had tried to steal had become something far more valuable. "They are coming," Lewis said simply when he sat across from. "Yes, in 3 months." "Are we ready?" Consider the question carefully. Humanity had grown strong in these 20 years. The fleet had expanded to 47 warships. The population had grown to 12 billion spread across multiple worlds. The technological advancement had been rapid and steady, but readiness was not just about military strength. "No," said finally, "we will never be ready for this conversation, but we will have it anyway." The 3 months passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah, now the chief diplomat of humanity, oversaw the construction of a meeting facility that would be neutral territory. It was built in an orbital station positioned between human space and the jump point where the council delegation would arrive. On the day of arrival, stood with Sarah and Victoria as the council ships emerged from hyperspace. 3 massive vessels, their design familiar from the old days. They made no aggressive moves. They simply took up position and waited. The delegation transported down to the meeting facility. There were 5 delegates. Na, the ancient elder, a representative of the who was not himself, representatives from the and one human. Had not expected a human among the delegation, until he saw the man's face and recognized him. It was Dr. Park, a human scientist who had chosen to stay with the Galactic Council when Silent Exodus occurred. "Welcome," Sarah said formally. "The human civilization greets the Galactic Council with respect." "You have called yourselves a civilization," Na said in his ancient, measured voice. "But you are still human, a young species that has survived only because we allowed it." "That is no longer accurate," Sarah replied. "We are not here because you allow us. We are here because we exist, and we are at least as advanced as you are now. In some ways, more advanced. We have achieved in 20 years what took your species thousands of years. We have done it without your help or your approval." The delegate spoke. His voice carried the tone of someone forced into a difficult position. We acknowledge humanity's achievements. We acknowledge that the attempted theft of your research was wrong. We come to offer reconciliation. What does reconciliation mean to the Council? Asked. Trade relations, technology exchange, a formal position for humanity in the Council structure equal to all member species. The same position we requested 5 years ago, which you, Sarah said. The same position we would have occupied if we had submitted to your domination. You offer us now what you refused us then. Dr. Park spoke for the first time. The Council has learned from this. They understand now that humanity is different from what they believed, that we are not children, that we are not a species that can be controlled or manipulated. Does the Council also understand, asked, that there are other humans who chose to remain with the Council, that there are human colonies still under Council jurisdiction? Park's face went still. There are 43 human colonies integrated into Council space. They number approximately 3 billion people. And they remain there voluntarily, Sarah asked. As much as anyone in the Council remains voluntarily, Park replied carefully. Looked at the elder. We will agree to resume relations with the Galactic Council on one condition. Those human colonies must be given a choice. They can remain in Council space or they can join us. No pressure either direction. A free choice. Nuh considered this for a long moment. This is acceptable. The Council will permit a referendum in those colonies. We believe most will choose to remain where they are. Their lives are established. Their families have lived under Council rule for generations. But when the referendums were held, something unexpected happened. 800 million humans chose to leave the Council. Not all of the 3 billion, but a significant portion. They boarded human ships and made the journey to humanity's deep space settlements. The Galactic Council found itself in an unprecedented position. A species had achieved independence and had become powerful enough that the Council had to negotiate with them as equals. And that species continued to grow stronger with each passing year. In the decades that followed, humanity did not rejoin the Galactic Council as a subject species. Instead, humanity became something different. A free civilization that chose to trade with the Council and with other species, but on terms of complete equality. An alliance partner, not a junior member. A species that could not be dominated or controlled. Hayes lived to see his 98th birthday. On that day, he stood in a garden filled with earth trees and watched children who had never known the Galactic Council play among the plants. These children were the future. They would never bow to alien power. They would never accept inferior status. They would never forget the cost of freedom. When died, they scattered his ashes across the fields of the human's moon. Sarah gave the final speech. Understood something that the Galactic Council never grasped, she said. Freedom is not given, it is taken. Respect is not granted, it is earned. And power is not measured in weapons or technology. It is measured in the will to choose your own future. Humanity chose its future, and in doing so, humanity changed the galaxy, not through conquest, not through violence, but through the simple act of walking away and building something better for ourselves. The gathering was attended by billions of humans. They watched as the ashes of their greatest leader fell to the ground and merged with the soil of the world they had built. Behind them, the sun set on a civilization that had learned the most important lesson the galaxy could teach. No one can make you a slave unless you accept slavery. No one can make you less than equal unless you believe it. And no species, no matter how powerful, can take freedom from those who are willing to fight for it. Humanity had left the Galactic Council in silence, but the echoes of that departure would shake the stars for generations to come.